Hi everyone, my name is João Aguiar. I am currently working at Uniplaces as iOS developer. I've been doing for the last 5 years, and today I want to talk about my experience that coming through MVC to MVVM and the way it helps us at Uniplaces. Okay, so let's start talk a bit about MVC. I guess almost everyone here should know about it. So the MVC stands for Model View Controller. Is a way for you to separate your code into different responsibilities, so you can keep it more clean. At least you try it, and with less dependencies, and so on. So one of the parts is the model, right? So the model is responsible for you to represent your data. It can be like a person, can be a user. So maybe if you have like a user, it will have a name, a birthday, I don't know, an email address or something. Then you have your view. So the view, as the name says for it, is the part that is responsible for showing the information to the user. So it's actually what the user sees. And then you have the controller. Controller is that part of the code that is in the middle of the view and the model, and should be the part that is responsible for gathering the data from the model and put it inside the view. Okay, there is different types of MVC. So, but what Apples show us, the way we should be doing, it should be something like this. So basically, every time a user press a button, the controller, that view should just send a notification for the controller that is listening to that notification. Then the controller should be responsible for treating that notification and pass it to the model if needed, or just maybe, I don't know, maybe can do animation and just like update the view and showing other view or something. The interest part is the same thing. The model, if something happens to the model updated itself, maybe like in a request that you are making for our API, our model gets updated somehow. The model should not have a reference to our controller, so we should be notifying our controller that the model had been updated, and controller should be listening to it and maybe or not act to that change. So directly it seems okay, but the truth is when you are developing it for iOS, what you usually do is more something like this. You have your view really coupled to your controller, and you own your model and just listening to the model itself. So the proof of it, it's basically you are not able to have a view without a controller, and you are not able to have the controller without a view. So every time a view dies, your controller will die. And same ways around. So you have, truthfully, everything is coupled. This is one of the problems with Apple's MVC. And then if you develop for iOS for some time and look to pass through many codes, usually you saw something like this bit of code. At the beginning, everything seems normal. So we have a table view. We are getting the cell. So you are asking for the cell using that function, the queue identifier. And yeah, you are casting it to the cell, and then we are saying, okay, cell configured, update yourself, I want to show this model in the cell. Everything seems nice and seems clean, right? But I show this. This is how Apple wanted you to do the MVC. But then you had this line of code. So actually, what you are making is a direct connection between your view and your model. So you are at this time, I really like couple everything and mixing contexts. And yeah, it's not correct according to Apple, right? So how Apple want us to do it? So basically, they want to add everything on our ViewController. So we are getting the cell, we are actually saying cell, I want the title label and I want this title to have this string. And you have a date, you need to format the date and show everything. So it will get a mess. Like this is a simple cell, but if you have complex cell with a lot of labels and images and animations, maybe, you are getting into trouble. So the big problem with it is the control of responsibilities that controller have in MVC. So according to Apple, a controller object acts as a coordinator or has an intermediary between one or more views objects and one or more model objects. So basically, it's literally, you have your model that usually is really simple. You just want to represent your data. And you have your view that should be like really simple too, according to them. And then the controller is responsible for everything. And I mean like everything. React user actions, so if you press something, is controller that is responsible to do it. You also want to update the view. If you want to update the view contents, it's that class that is responsible for doing it. If you want to resizing, managing the layouts, managing the app flow, so network code, delegates. So really a lot of responsibilities. So then you have like the old joke that everyone is making about Apple's MVC, that is MVC stands for Massive View Controller, because it's easy to end up with 2K, 3K lines of code. So this is where MVVM can help you. So the MVVM stands for model, view model. At the beginning, everything is the same. So you have your model, your thin layer that represents your data, same thing stuff. Then you have your view. So here, the view, it's almost same thing. It's everything that you want to show to the user. But now, if you are developing for iOS, you will add the view, and view controllers will represent your view. So you are adding more responsibilities to the view layer. So every animation, every treat of every animation, every action that user does, it should be done in the view layer, right? And then we have the view model. The view model here, the responsibilities of him is basically you get the data from the model, you will parse the data, do the changes that you need to the data, and you'll send to the view. The view is responsible for showing it. At the same time, now the view model is the part that is responsible to make the queries, to make your calls to your APIs. So it's a better way to decouple your code. So more or less, this is the flow that you should do. So the view will own the view model, and the view model will own the model. And then when you want to get the other way around, you don't have like direct connections. So basically, you should never had a reference to your view controller at your view model. So one interesting part here is that if you look at the view for the view and the view model, you have this binding thing. So this is the most complex parts of view model, but I will explain it to you how you should do it. So looking to the architecture itself, you should do something like this. So the only thing that is importing your UI kit should only be your view and your view controller, nothing more. Your view model is the part that is responsible to make your network connections, your dealing with your business rules, or making the persistent stores. Okay, and in the base you have the foundation that is from Apple's. Okay, so this seems interesting, I hope. So let's look how the code looks like. Okay. So this is a really basic view model. So you only add like what you want to show, like the title label, the user placeholder text, what you want to show to the user. But then you have that two variables that will be like the username. So imagine you have a login view. So in the login view, you will need to get the username that the user is inputting and the password. And then probably you want to have a variable that is valid. That basically will validate what the username and your password. That validations can be like if your username is an email address, you want to check if you have like an at in the middle of the string, and maybe your password needs to have more than 6 characters. And according to these rules, you want to update this variable. Is valid to true or false? Maybe because you want to enable or disable your login button in your view. Okay. So, and then let's look to our view controller. So actually, what we are making here is injecting our view model to our view controller. We have the usual stuff, like the outlets, identifying our UI text field if you are using XIBs or storyboards, password, login button, right? But then you want like to have default values like the title. So you get those values from the view model, and then you are showing it. Nothing really special here. So you have login set title, login button set title. So we are just setting everything up. Nothing really special, I think. So, but then let's look to a different flow, right? So you have the username and you have the password. And then you have a button that is to make the actual login happens. So at our view controller, we'll just like add the login button pressed, the usual stuff, so a listener to that action. And if you look to the first line, so I'm saying, okay, I want to show a spinning wheel. So I'm saying, okay, the view controller is the place where you should do all the animations. The view model don't need to know nothing about it. And then you are just saying, view model, to the login. Okay, so our network layer is our network code or handlers will be in the view model, right? So, okay, in the view model, I just create an API protocol. So yeah, don't inject directly your APIs, your other classes. Just make protocols. It's really important. If you want to test everything, it's really important that you use protocols a lot, a lot. Otherwise, you will not be able to do mocking, and then you are not able to test your view model. So, and then the MVVM magic will disappear. Okay. So, okay, let's continue. So, you just add the function do login, and you are making the API call. Just simple thing, nothing special, right? So, but that's the problem. I'm just making the do login with the username that I have in this class, but I didn't show you how to update these values, and you need to get those, right? It's your view model. It is responsibility to keep track of it and validate everything. So the Apple's approach or simple approach will be just to use the UI text field delegates, right? You will just add something like this to your view controller and saying, okay, my text field, has view controller, I am the delegate of these text fields, and every time the users type something, I will just update our view model. Okay, it's a solution. It will work. But there's a problem. You have this variable, so it's valid. So every time a user will input your username, if you want to get with this line of thinking, you will need to make like a listener for username and then make another listener for password. And every time a user inputs something, you need to validate for both. Or maybe you need, and then if you want to improve a little, you will add like a bunch of is username valid and is password valid, and then only if both of them are valid, you are updating this is valid variable. So, okay. This is where the binding thing comes up. So the idea of binding is just you have your username in your ViewController, and you will have your username in the view model. And what you really want is to, every time the username variable on the login on the ViewController updates or get changed, you want also to change the variable on the view model. So for this, the better thing to use a reactive framework. There are two famous. You have reactive Cocoa or RX, and we are using RX Swift at Uniplaces because it's simple and you have a better documentation. Pretty much that's it. But in the end, it's almost the same thing. And the ideas of both are exactly the same. So to explain you how this works, first thing I need to show you is this. Everyone knows what this is, right? It's an array of values, of integers. So if you want to get all the even numbers, you just make like array.filter and then that stuff. If you want like to have all these array multiplied by 5, you can just use the map function. Or even if you want to add all the arrays, add all elements inside the array, you can use the reduce, right? So actually, what you have is an array of objects. If you apply this thinking to Rx, in Rx we have observables. So an array, in that example, was an array of integers. An observable will be like an array of events. It's a better way of thinking about this. So if you want like to observe this value, like you have this stream of events and you are saying, okay, I want to observe this. So you are creating an observable. And in other part of the code, you want actually to listen to this stream. So what you will make is a subscribable. So what you are saying is like, you're making that array an observable, and then you are saying, okay, but I want to get all the elements in that stream. So you are getting one by one all the elements that come through. So if you apply these two events, it will be exactly the same. So let's look back to our login case, right? So when you are making like if you want to make an assigning API call, you can do it by a signal, right? So it may seem complex, but it's pretty straightforward. So first thing that you are doing is create an observable that you are saying that will always return a stream of bools, right? So an array of bools. And you are saying, okay, make the API call. So this is usually normal for every iOS developer. And then inside this block, so when this call ends, it will call this completion block. So, and then you are saying, okay, if I receive an error, I want to send this error to all my observables, to all my subscribables, all the people that are subscribing to me. But if everything goes well, you just say, okay, I am sending the value that the API got me. So if login was well succeed, you'll just get like succeed will equals to true. And then you just say, okay, everything concluded, so you can just say observable.onComplete, because it will just send that notification to people that are subscribing to it. So this piece of code will be in your view model, because we are making an API call, right? So in your view model, that when you press login, you want to actually make this API. So what you just need to do is make something like this. So you are saying view model.signin API signal and say subscribe. And then you are waiting for that values that is coming from that stream. So imagine, so we are subscribing to it, and then on next you are receiving a value. And you are saying, okay, if the value was true, so if everything went well, we just say, okay, I want to go to the next ViewController. So tell.show next ViewController, that probably will be a function in your code. Then you have the on error that you should handle to it. You have the onComplete that usually you can do, like if you are showing a spinning wheel, the onComplete will be the perfect place just to stop it, stop spinning. And yeah, on error, you probably want to show something to the user or not. Okay, on dispose is something more complex, but it's basically if for some reason you try to end the signal, you will get that notification too. So if I am not here to explain everything about RX because it's really complex, it's just like the beginning. So, but you can do like a lot of steps. You can, almost everything that you can do with arrays, you can do with RX. You just need to do it properly. So you can, and even more, like to filter, yeah, it's a normal thing. But if you can like have two signals that are different and you want to combine it. Actually, I have an example that I will show you. But transform, it will be like the same thing that has mapping, and you are actually making the same calls, like exactly the same, like dot map and do your stuff. For the programmable, it will be as having an array or something. So as I told, I was here, so I was trying to say, okay, so we need to bind our values, our username with our view model. So the first thing that you need to change is just pass from a string to a variable. The variable is an RX class that is basically you are saying that this username can be observable and also a subscriber for something. Okay? And this is where the magic happens. So in your ViewController, the only thing that you need to do is basically say, okay, so we are getting our username text field that is in setup bindings, and you are transforming that text field actually into a subscriber. So we are actually listening to everything, and you are saying, oh, but I want to bind everything that I'm receiving to our view model. So this is what I'm doing in the first two lines of code. And then you have that disposable too that, okay, it's a little more complex, but basically you are saying, okay, every time this ViewController will disappear, you also want to delete this binding. So it's the way they have it to get through Arc. Okay. So let's look to the login button case. So what I told basically is you want to highlight or not the button according to if your username and password are valid, right? Usually if you try to do it in the MVC way, you will end up with a lot of code and probably bugs. But if you are using RX, you will end up with only these lines of code. So you are creating an observable and you are saying, okay, I want to combine this. So every time our email in the view model will update, you are mapping every value and you are validating that new password and saying, okay, so the email got changed. You are getting into here and you are saying, okay, actually these are. Okay. So every time an email is updated, you are trying to validating it, and if it's true, you will get like the last value that you have from the password, and if it is also true, you will return a true. Otherwise, you'll get false. So it's a really simple and cool way to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, you are not using MVVM, you are not forced to use RX, but it will definitely help you if you do it. So, last thoughts. So, with MVVM, if you do it cleanly, you will end up with a lot of decoupled code. So, it will be like really, really easy to test it if you want it. So, yeah, your code will definitely will be more organized, and also it's more scalable in bigger teams, because since you have decoupled code, it will help you a lot. So, yeah. Questions? So, okay. So since the so if you look to MVC, your view and ViewController are coupled. So your ViewController is the part that is responsible for doing the network connections, your network calls, treat the information, and show it to the user. But since they are coupled with the view, you are not able to load it without the view itself. So since you are putting this data in the view model, and view model has no dependency with UIKit and with your view, it will help you to do your tests. So actually, we are using a library that is Swift inject. It's pretty nice. So we are just creating a graph of dependencies and unlock everything through it. Okay, thank you.